Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for this brief webinar. My name is Andy Hanna, and I'm the Executive Director of Blue Street Data. I'm going to explain what that is in a slide or two. And our webinar is entitled, Are You Overpaying for Data? So let me get right into who I am so you know. So I'm the executive director, as I said, not only of Blue Street Data, but 1486 Labs, which is the parent company of Blue Street Data. I'm the chairperson for the advisory board for responsible data science at the University of Pittsburgh. I'm also on the faculty here at Pitt. And most recently, I was and still am the president of Liaison AI and Data Science Solutions. So basically, I've been working in data for about 30 years now, data and data science. And today I want to talk to you about how we can think about data a little bit differently. That we can think about it as data and analytics as a product. We can think about how we find the right external data and walk through a framework that we're using at Blue Street Data, and then give a real world example from financial institution about how this will work. Lastly, just tell you how you can access more resources from Blue Street Data. But to start this off, let me tell you about who we are. So Blue Street Data is, our mission is to help make the markets for buying and selling of data more efficient. So how do we bring transparency to price, quality, and the choice of this data? And in particular, we're buyer focused, which means we're helping to understand the buyer journey and how to make the process easier. That does not mean that we're not also very much a support of the supply side, because there has to be a balance between the supply and the buy side related to data. So hopefully you take some things away from this webinar today that can help you in your job, but also realize that we're going to have a series of these webinars, and we're going to dive in deeper to various components of what I'm going to talk to you about today. But this is essentially a way to give an overall framework for what we're up to. Where I want to start is with this slide. This slide is from friends of ours at the International Institute for Analytics, a really cool organization that studies organizations and helps organizations achieve analytic maturity. And what they've learned over the years is there's a couple critical factors. None of these are probably too surprising to you, but if you how to become a more, how to compete with analytics. So you obviously have to have the right leadership, the right IT structure and data mastery, which we all know is very important. We have to have an innovative culture. So we've got to be willing to change. Using analytics and data to run the business is a different mindset. But what really particularly struck me in a lot of their work is thinking about analytics as a product. We are generating a product out of the process that we're using for data and analytics. So we can almost think about it as a manufacturing process. And so we have this visual here where we can think about raw materials going into the manufacturing process and producing a product. Your product can be your predictive algorithms. It can be a market study and understanding of some topic that there's an objective for that, whether it's to deliver a product to a customer or whether it's an internal evaluation. There's an objective of everything that we build. And as we know, especially if we're using AI, it's very different than software. It's living, it needs to be constantly fed, it needs to be innovated on and experimented. And where that all starts is with the raw materials, right? So you have feeding into the manufacturing process, you have both internal and external data. Now, we know there's a lot of management that has to go on with that data, the cleaning, the loading, the transformation, the engineering, et cetera. But before we get to that, we have to ingest it with data. And in particular, we want to focus on external data in this conversation. And if we hold the premise of a manufacturing process as being representative of building these analytics, then it follows that if we can put better raw materials into our manufacturing process, we're going to get better outcomes. Whether those are predictive or prescriptive or descriptive and diagnostic, whatever it may be, we're going to get better outcomes, and we're going to be able to get better performance, and we're going to be able to understand our customers better or our manufacturing floor better or whatever it may be. Okay, so the concept, this is obviously not a new concept. I mean, we can go out and we can study some of the examples that have been made here, like using total quality management for managing the manufacturing process of analytics. There's other models that we can think of, but I like to drive it back to a manufacturing process. So very, a very well-defined, well-oiled process to acquire raw materials and insert them into the manufacturing process. Starts with defining needs, finding the diversified group of suppliers that we can evaluate, and then evaluating those suppliers on quality and price. And for this purposes today, I'm going to include in quality the ease of acquisition and integration into the manufacturing process. But so to put it in a simple 5-step process, we see that define, find, evaluate, compare, purchase, and integrate. And so what can we learn or take away from that is how we can help Blue Street Data, how we can help bring some transparency to part of this process. And in today's webinar, I'm really going to focus on these two boxes, which is evaluate quality and compare prices. And really what we want is comparability, right? Be able to look at multiple choices and understand those choices in context of what we're trying to achieve with our business. And this is why I say we're buyer journey focused, because this understanding of quality and pricing ties into that defined needs piece. And if we can set that up, if we can help organizations create the right processes internally, it makes it much easier for suppliers to be able to serve the needs of the buyers. And really, this is what in our work, and Blue Street Data has now been around for about 2 years. In our work with buyers, is that we see that this is really where we can have an impact on the industry as a whole. Okay, so here's that process again at the top. And let's first focus a little bit on evaluate quality. So we're all very much or very attuned with the classic data quality dimensions. And I'm just going to reference click here because I wanted to grab a screenshot of those dimensions, and Click did a nice job of just outlining them. So I just grabbed them and put them here. So I felt like giving them a little recognition would be good. If you don't know Click, go check them out. www.click.com. Yeah, it's a little commercial. I'm looking at my producer, Kate, over here. But these are what we think about, right? Accuracy, consistency, completeness, time. You know them because you live them. You get this data into the house, and these are the things that you're trying to understand so that you can ensure that it's going to meet the needs that we have and actually get the results out of the manufacturing process that we want. Oftentimes, and the number of times that I've heard that the full data set doesn't always is not always represented by the sample data set. That's a sort of what I will call a 1 every 3 conversations that I have. So there's a lot, and I'm not saying that there's anything negative on the supply side. What I'm saying is that it's hard until you have the data sets in your hands and you're trying to work with it. It's hard to get an understanding of these attributes, of these dimensions, just from a small subset of the population. So we know we have this challenge, right? So we decided at Blue Street Data in concert with our advisors. I'm going to throw a quick shout out to one of our advisors, Malcolm Hawker, who works with Prophecy. You should check him out. He has some really great content on LinkedIn. But what we really wanted to focus on was transparency. And that's transparency about everything that the data provider, the data supplier is presenting to the market. And so what we want to understand is how are they making the data products that they're selling? What is the process that they go through? What is the quality checks that they go through? Right? What is the source or the lineage of the data? Is it coming from a source that we trust? Is there transparency? The key piece of this is our suppliers being transparent in terms of where the data is coming from and how they make their data products. Are they complying with some standard? An example might be ISO 8000, for data quality standards. And I see there's some Q&A coming in, and I love it. And I'm gonna take those at the end. So appreciate it. Just keep that Q&A coming. And so we also want to build into that not only sort of that quality control that the manufacturer has, but also what experience is the supplier having with the buyer. And that will be provided or can be provided by experts or people who have actually used the data in the past. And I'm not thinking about this as sort of a Yelp type of experience where people can just flood, with their opinions about a particular data set. I'm talking about a very curated, relationship-based understanding of a buyer's experience with the supplier. So if we can put all this together before we think about those typical or those classical dimensions of quality, if the company providing the data is following these standards, then we have a really good opportunity to have trust in the data that's coming in the door. So I just wanted to sort of put that out there so that you can understand. And in a future webinar, we're going to go into a lot of detail about the quality side of what we're doing. So that's a quality piece. So if we move this forward and we think about pricing can be very different across data suppliers. And this is where it can also get very tricky because, it might be it might be a flat rate, it might be a yearly package, it might be a per line charge, right? So the format could be different, the pricing can be different. So that can make it very difficult for buyers to evaluate the pricing of the type of data that they're looking for and that they're actually buying at the end of the day. So now if you can imagine if I'm in a company and it's my job to understand this price and this quality, I have a lot to do, right? Related to each data set and each supplier that I'm trying to acquire. I need to understand their manufacturing process of their data products, what other people think about them, all these prices in different formats. It's hard to put that all together. It takes a lot of time, it can take a lot of money, or you can hire consultants to do it. And so we need an easier way, right, for us to get comparability across data sets for a particular problem. And so step into the picture what Blue Street Data is doing. So again, if we take both those price and those quality together, what we can then do is create and this is, very basic picture for now, so that we're getting across the idea of how we could bring more transparency. And we have on the y-axis there price, and on the x-axis we have quality. So as you might imagine, we see that different data suppliers and data sets end up in different parts of this quadrant. So you got high price, high quality, right? High quality, low price. So you want to be able to say, for my particular purpose, what is the level of quality that I'm concerned about? And then what am I willing to pay? So I can look at this particular chart and I can say, gee, that green dot makes a heck of a lot more sense than that yellow dot. I'm going to get superior quality at a lower price, right? Or believe it or not, the gray one, low price, low quality, might be a particular data set where we don't need a ton of accuracy related to it, or we don't need it to be updated every day. And so quality may be a bit lower, and we want to pay a lower price for that. So it's important to note that from a matrix like this, it's not, oh, we want to be in the bottom right-hand corner. Not necessarily, right? So we want to understand what the data is relative to the needs of the company. And this is what we've been doing to help out institutions in terms of finding the right supplier and the right relationship with the supplier to be able to provide them data at the right quality and the right price. Okay, so here's one of the agenda items that we had was to describe a real world example of this. And so the example I'm going to anonymize the client here and a couple of the alternative data sets. But what in this case, it was a large financial institution that was looking for particular data. They were looking for mortgage data. They needed more ends from, there was a certain number of US states that they wanted this information from. They wanted loans, they wanted the property type, and they were looking for, in particular, 5 million data points for this particular problem. And so what we did is we worked with them and identified a number of different potential suppliers of that data. And two of them ended up being sort of in that final quadrant where we were analyzing with them. And what we saw was that this company, Atom Data, provided a little shout out to them, provided some really great interactions related to their desire for this to helping this client. And they ended up having sort of the price and quality position on our matrix that met the needs of the client. So I had to anonymize some of the dollar amounts here, but where they ended up on the matrix is in that right. So it was higher quality, and it was, the price was, was higher. It was it's a higher quality set with a higher price than above the mean. However, that was important to the client to be able to attain that. And what we saw is in that relationship that they could save tens of thousands of dollars in doing a transaction or completing a transaction with Atom versus, the second anonymous data company. So I think this is a really good example of where we define the needs. What do we need? What are the potential suppliers out there? And then how do we look at that relationship in price and quality related to what the client was looking for, and the end result was tens of thousands of dollars of savings. So this is essentially the outcome that we need to see. So more transparency, or at least interpretation of pricing, so that we can create a level playing field to understand what's equivalent in pricing and where they fall in the quality matrix. So in summary, what we're doing here is reducing data spend. We do two things really. We reduce the amount of time that clients have to take to find data sets and to compare them, and then we save money at the end of the day, time and money. That is what we're up to, and looking at this in terms of the quality thresholds that are important to the clients, and being able to compare that pricing across the attributes that are important to you. Okay, so here's where you would think, I'm done, right? This is the end of the webinar. Well, not quite, because here's what's really exciting about what we're doing at Blue Street Data. Wouldn't you like this information with just a couple clicks? So what I described was an engagement, right? So thinking about understanding the needs from the very beginning, working with the client, finding the suppliers, finding the right price with the right quality and the right attributes. Now imagine you being able to do that with a couple clicks. You enter the information that you would give to the consultant at the end of the day. You press enter, and you get that matrix. And by the fall, you'll be able to do that through Blue Street Data. So that's a little bit of a Easter egg for future future webinars, but we're very excited about that. Okay, so before I take questions, I see I have a couple in the Q&A. Just want to tell you what you're going to get at the end of this workshop. First, you'll get the recording of this webinar. You're going to get a step-by-step guide to cost-effective data buying, and then you're going to get early signups for those additional webinars that I were talked about. We'd love for you to join our community, bluestreetdata.com. Come check it out. I think you'll find it very interesting. You'll be able to get information there that you can't get anywhere else. Pulling data, information from influencers. You'll get use case details. There's lots of information, a supplier index that you can understand the type, how those suppliers tie into the use cases. So there's a lot of great information that's there. And if you want early access to what we're calling the PQC, price quality choice, right, of that automated system to help you find the data sets that you're looking for, and to, with a couple clicks of the button, be able to compare price and quality, send me directly an email, and we'll set up a discussion. We'll get you connected to our team. So that's the end of the webinar as we know it. And happy to take Q&A. I see I have a couple of Q&A in the chat, so I'm going to pop them up here right now, both from anonymous attendees. You know, you're more than happy to send me out an email. We can talk offline as well. So it says, how can I validate the data quality dimensions I'm using before committing to a purchase? Yeah, I mean, this is a challenge, right? So sometimes, you know, obviously getting a sample of the data allows us to think about those dimensions classically. But I think what we really want to do is we want to know that when we buy a data set from a particular supplier, that we have confidence that they're producing data at a standard that reduces our worry about whether or not those dimensions are going to be hit. There's no doubt that once we get the data set, we're going to have to work with it to get it right, and maybe even work with the supplier to increase match rate if that's one of the things that we're looking at. But we want to make sure that the stability of the products that we're buying that are already in existence. So I would say that we need to follow those ideas that I talked about earlier about you know, what processes are they following to manufacture the data product? What's the data lineage? What's the source of that data? Are they being transparent about that? You know, do we have expert opinions about others who have used it? What about the supplier themselves? How long have they been around? You know, what is the buying friction associated? So these are the things that end up making it, you know, a good buying experience with our supplier relationship. Okay, that's number one. And if I didn't answer your question, I encourage you, hit me with an email, and we can talk about it offline. Okay, second question that we have here is, in some cases, buying seemingly cheaper data sets can end up costing more due to extensive cleaning or normalization needs. How can that be avoided at the time of purchase? I think, you know, it's going to be very difficult to avoid situations where you're going to have you're not going to have no work to do. We know that. Everybody who's bought data understands that there's always going to be work to do. But, you know, this answer, I'm kind of happy about this question because it is right in line with the question before that. So the questions that we're asking is about that confidence level in when it comes in the door. And I think that is a piece that we really haven't put forth in our industry quite like the manufacturing industry has done. In fact, if you're going to buy a raw material in the manufacturing industry, the first thing that you're going to see when you go to a website related to a supplier, is that you're going to see an ISO 9000 or an ISO 9001 certification. They're saying, look, we make the best quality products. You can trust us. You're going to get on spec product. If we say we're going to deliver to you, we're going to deliver to you. That's the relationship that the buyer and the seller in the data industry should have. We should have that ability to understand that transparency around the manufacturing of the data product. And so I think this is a very exciting time for our industry, because we, with AI, with advanced analytics, predictive analytics, we're putting more and more time into the understanding of what we're putting into that analytics manufacturing process. And so that being said, these standards are forming. ISO 9000 or 8000 has been around for quite some time, but the actual application of it and taking it seriously and the understanding the importance is relatively new. I would encourage you to check out the Data and Trust Alliance and what they're doing with data provenancy, which is really exciting. It's right in line with what we're thinking about from a quality perspective, but there's so much new work coming out in this area that it's that you should feel excited about that if you're in this industry. Okay. Third question here is just about what are our plans for rolling out the PQC product, as I called it before. So we're going to be in beta testing with that product coming up in the fall. So this is a really great time for you to reach out to us, because what we want to really make sure that with our early partners that we're going through a process both with the automated product and a manual process at the same time. So it's a really cool way of getting involved early, but also getting very hands-on treatment from the team at Blue Street Data. Okay, fourth question here is, what is the difference between 1486 Labs and Blue Street Data? That's a great question. So 1486 Labs is an organization that we created a couple years ago that is focused on generating solutions to problems or opportunities at the intersection of data and analytics. And so the first obvious result of that was the creation of Blue Street Data. So we believe in this wave of organizations adopting AI and analytics to compete on, to be analytic competitors, as the International Institute for Analytics would say, that there is a whole bunch of services and tools and philosophies that we can start to develop. And with Blue Street Data, it's all about the community. It's all about bringing into this community buyers and sellers of data to make it easier for them to find each other, to bring transparency to price and quality, to help them find data sets that they can't find anywhere else. These are the core tenets of what we're creating. But I really, really want to make sure that everybody understands we are pro supplier as well. So we're not saying that we're only buyer focused, because you don't have a market if you don't have buyer and seller together. What we are is, though, buyer journey focused, because we believe that's where the transparency and the overall buying and selling of data is needed. Okay, I think I'm at 11:29, so I really appreciate you being here. I appreciate those of you who, we already did that. So I appreciate everybody who joined us today, and obviously you're going to be watching this recording probably at 3x speed, because I kind of talk slow, but that's okay. But please reach out to me, join Blue Street Data, reach out to the Blue Street Data team, go to www.bluestreetdata.com, sign up, get a free pizza. Oh, did I just say that? Well, maybe. So put that in there, and if you send me an email, I'll send you a free pizza. So thanks, everybody. 11:30. Great to be with you today, and have a great rest of your week.